Hello, dear friends. Welcome. This is a meeting from our Astrology and GSR club. For those of you who are not part of the club, you can join us. Later, I will put the links under the video on YouTube, or you can go to marstars.net and sign up for our club so you don't miss notifications, news, recordings, and all of that. Today's topic will be about the upcoming lunar eclipse happening on the 5th of May, 2023. Very intense, very powerful, very transformative lunar eclipse and full moon. And before we dive deeper into that, I want to introduce myself for the new people, those who are joining us for the first time. My name is Marina Stoichkova. I've been an astrologer for 10 years now. I also have a psychology degree, and I'm a GSR expert pro. GSR is a technique that works with the subconscious mind and the inner world, the most transformative method. So the main focus of my work is understanding ourselves better, increasing our self-awareness, and then also doing the best we can with this, transforming it in the most beneficial and positive way. And speaking of transformation, actually, this is one of the main themes that are coming up with this lunar eclipse. The lunar eclipse is on the 5th, I believe. Let me check. I think it was Friday, if I'm not wrong. Yes, it's on Friday. And it's interesting that Friday is also the Venus day. And as we will see, Venus plays a major role in this eclipse. So in this session, our idea is to look at this event from a deeper perspective. I will try to share the information and my thoughts in the kind of like easiest way to process, but also my intention is to look beyond the traditional and kind of like cliche things. So I have some interesting ideas I will share with you about how we can understand better and interpret this event. Of course, like any other astrology event, this lunar eclipse will also play a specific role in your chart, and that would depend on your chart. So, of course, there will be some things that would apply more to you or that would be specific for you. And yet there are some kind of general collective themes, and that's what we would explore. We would try to see like what are the collective topics, themes, directions related to this upcoming lunar eclipse. Some of the key things that we would need to explore. First of all, we have Uranus in conjunction, joining the eclipse. It's in conjunction with the sun. We have Mercury retrograde also. And actually, I think it would be easier when I share my screen so that you can see the chart and all of the planets which are involved. But let's start first with the main focus. The main focus is on the signs which are triggered. The signs are Scorpio and Taurus. And the moon together with the south node are in Scorpio, and the sun with the north node and other planets that we would explore are in Taurus. So those are the two signs. This is the axis, Taurus and Scorpio. So first, let's try to explore what is this axis related to. First of all, this is the axis of energy exchange. Taurus is related to our ability to keep and contain things energy, material stuff. And Scorpio is the sign of letting go and transformation, and also sharing. So one of the general themes is related to finding the balance. Finding the balance between being able to contain, keep, save what is needed, what is necessary, what is helpful, and on the other side, let go, release, set free from the things that we don't need anymore, from the things that are unnecessary for us, no longer relevant, and so on. And of course, this is also related to money. Money is one of the topics that are related to this axis. Scorpio, Taurus, it's related to our exchange. We know how money works, so I won't talk about this side. But the point is that also around this lunar eclipse, we can work on issues related to money, money blockages, or how we interact with resources. This is so important. And I'm seeing this more and more from my work, that almost every one of us has problems or issues with handling with the resource. And this is a very common desire, idea. Sometimes even it may sound like a dream to have more money. And many of us say that we would like to have more money. But the truth is that also for many of us, this is a problematic area. And if you think about those popular examples of people earning money out of the blue, from the lottery, from some kind of games, I don't know, from the casino or somewhere, like significant amount of money, you know how almost all of those people are losing the money within, I don't know, months, years, but eventually they lose it. And very often there is also a destructive influence that comes with it. So people may even end up lower than they were in the first place when they won the lottery prize or whatever. So this is not a coincidence. This is not a random thing. This is just an indication that for people, it's difficult to interact with resource, because resource means that you need to grow. And this is one of the secondary themes that comes with this lunar eclipse, because as we will see in a moment in the chart, Jupiter is in the back scene, but at the same time playing also an interesting role. Jupiter right now is at the 28th degree of Aries. And very soon Jupiter will move to Taurus. Just another side note that probably our next meeting will be on Jupiter in Taurus. But for now, Jupiter is on the edge at the end of Aries, but it's in conjunction with the North Node. So Jupiter is kind of like dragged into this whole thing, into this eclipse as well, even though it may not look like that at first sight. And Jupiter is about growth, expansion. And this could be one of the themes we may also work on. So our ability and preparation to grow. So if we want more resource, more money, more energy, we need to be ready for this growth. Otherwise, if we are not growing, we can't use the resource. We are either losing it, or in some cases, again, it happens in a very destructive way and we end up losing it also. So growth is also, as I said, essential. And responsibility. This is the other thing that can help us if we want to be able to contain, to keep, to save, to have more energy, more resource, more money. So responsibility, preparation to grow and to expand. And there are other things that also I will share with you. Okay. Let's actually look at the chart. I think that it would be more like visually clear. Okay, something like this. Hope you can see my screen well. This is the chart of the upcoming lunar eclipse on the 5th of May, next Friday, around 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, US Eastern Time. The degrees which are triggered. So the South Node is on the 5th degree in Scorpio, the moon is on the 15th degree. We always take plus minus 5 degrees for the range of, which area of the zodiac is affected. So we can say that the first 20 degrees of Scorpio and Taurus would be affected the most. And the first thing, of course, is to check in your chart if you happen to have planets or cusps of houses, or maybe your ascendant might be there between, again, the 1st and the 20th degree of Scorpio and Taurus. If you have personal planets there, it makes the eclipse even more significant for you. In a moment, I will discuss something more specific, which is about the generational or the outer planets. Because Scorpio is an interesting sign. Many of us, of course, from different generations, but among us, there are many people who happen to have an outer planet within this range. So within the first 20 degrees of Scorpio. So I have roughly calculated the years. So if you are born between this and this year, then you must have, for example, Uranus in Scorpio. So we will discuss from this perspective, what would it mean if you are born in one of those years? So that's a little bit, a bit later in a moment. So the degrees I mentioned. Interesting that now I'm realizing that this was also the area of Via Combusta, the 15th degree of Scorpio, the burned path. So that's also making the eclipse even more significant. Okay, and as we said, South Node and Moon are in Scorpio, and look what's happening here. We have the Sun together with Uranus and Mercury retrograde and the North Node, and Jupiter is very close to the North Node. So indirectly, it's also part of this whole thing. A few words about the full moon and the eclipse, the lunar eclipse. This happens when we have an opposition between the sun and the moon, which is a regular full moon. And a regular full moon is when the consciousness and the subconsciousness are kind of like apart, but there's also some ability to process and to see things, because when there is a regular full moon, we can see the whole moon. And the moon symbolizes the subconsciousness, the inner stuff, the things which are under the surface. And metaphorically speaking, this is the time when we can see, we can realize something, we can have a higher awareness about something that is happening inside of us, that is not in the area of our typical awareness and what we recognize, but this could be something that shows up. That's the moon. That's a regular full moon. What is the difference when we have an eclipse? We have an eclipse when the lunar nodes, the south and the north node, are also somewhere near the sun and the moon. So they are also part of the lunar, of the full moon. And the north and the south node, they are related to our direction. The south node is related to the past. It describes something that we can let go of, something that we should release. And the north node is like our direction. It's like a potential growth. It's like a possible area of expansion. There is one comparison, which is not entirely true, but kind of close. And it's that the south node is a little bit like Saturn. The north node is a little bit like Jupiter. And it's interesting that actually Jupiter is actually next to the north node in this particular case. So that's, yeah, also interesting coincidence. So we need to pay attention that most of the planets are around the north node, the node of expansion, growth, having more, not just having more, but also learning more, creating more. And only the moon is around the south node. So when it comes to the moon and the south node, which are in Scorpio, in this case, I would say that we need to let go of some kind of attachments, because Scorpio can also be a sign that is extremely obsessive and attached to things. It could be anything. It could be emotions, it could be relationships, it could be thoughts, it could be patterns, strategies, you name it, everything in life. So around this lunar eclipse, I think that one of the best things we can do is to try to let go of some of those old attachments. Things that, you know how you can also recognize if you need to let go of something. If there is a feeling like you are extremely stuck there, it usually means that there is no growth. So chances are you need to let go of something there. It doesn't necessarily mean that, for example, you need to give up on the whole idea or the whole dream or goal or whatever. But there could be parts, there could be little pieces that you need to release, that you need to let go of. And this will open up the space for something new to come, to fulfill this gap. This reminds me of a very practical feng shui exercise or practice. Within 10 days, every single day, you throw away 10 things that you don't use. So at the end of those 10-day period, you have released the space or opened the space from 100 unnecessary things that you have usually at home. So I think that's a great practice specifically for this lunar eclipse. Of course, it's not about throwing away your valuable things, but things that you are not using, that are just taking some space. Especially if you are a person who has difficulties with throwing things away. I'm not talking about valuable things. I'm talking about things that you don't use, but you keep just in case. We can do this with clothes and with so many other things. If you know that that's a pattern for you, chances are it's also difficult for you to receive new things. And the reason for that is, again, because the space is kind of like overcrowded. There is no space for new things. So around this lunar eclipse, one of the themes is to let go, to open the space, to release things that we just don't need anymore. On the other side, literally on the other side of the axis, we have the North Node and the Sun, which means that, sorry, I want to go back again to the Moon and the South Node because that would make more sense. I want to add one more thing, that the Moon is also related, as I said, to the subconsciousness and to our instincts and things that are, again, we are not consciously aware of. So we need to try to release this. We need to be more mindful. Again, of course, we cannot control this like 100%. It's like, going on a mission of, resisting your subconsciousness and saying that you will not listen to your subconsciousness and your instincts. That's not realistic, honestly. But we may keep the focus on that. And just to be mindful, for example, when you have an impulse to do something, stop for a moment. So don't rush into doing it right away, but stop for a moment and try to analyze it from a practical perspective, or in other words, to use your conscious mind and awareness. So, yeah, again, try not to jump straight into actions or to respond on those inner impulses right away. But now I will go to the Sun and the North Node. Try to focus more on the conscious awareness and the mind and on the observation. This is a very important lesson, and I will say something that I have shared before, but maybe some of you haven't heard it, or it's always helpful to remember important facts. It's about the physical characteristics of the Moon and the Sun. Obviously, there is a huge difference in their size as material objects. The Moon is much smaller than the Sun, but there is also a significant difference in terms of the distance between the Earth and the Moon and the Earth and the Sun. And it's so interesting that those are kind of proportional, or there's like a compensation between the size and the distance of those two objects. And because of that, from the perspective of the Earth, they seem kind of equally big. So if you look at the Sun during the day and the Moon, especially when there is a full moon, so we can see the whole moon during the night, they are almost equally in terms of the size, but not exactly. The Sun is just a little bit bigger than the Moon. And this is such an interesting also fact, which has, like anything else, it has a deeper meaning, that the subconsciousness and the consciousness are both playing such a major role for us, but the Sun is a little bit bigger. So the consciousness should always be a little bit ahead. We should always try to, I don't want to say control, but what would be like a more appropriate word? To be in touch, to observe, and again, to put a little bit more focus on the conscious awareness, on the conscious mind. And that's always true as a general thing. But in this full moon and lunar eclipse, this is also essential because the North Node is the one which is in conjunction with the sun. So the growth, the expansion will come when we activate the sun, which is the conscious awareness, and also other things as well, like our individuality, our uniqueness, our talents, our creativity. Those are the things that will help us to move forward and to grow. What will not help us is represented by, in this case, the moon in Scorpio and the South Node, which could be any pattern of responding in a childish way, if we have some kind of dependency or codependent relationships, or also what, if we are allowing ourselves to be influenced by other people. I mean, like too influenced, because the moon is about our perception and also the closest environment. So around this eclipse, actually, one of the lessons, one of the messages is to be in alignment with yourself, which is the sun, rather than the crowd outside of you, or what people are saying, or what they are expecting. That may include even our families or closest people. And again, I'm not saying that we should go on a battle and fight with the world. Absolutely not. But if you tend to define your actions or priorities or goals from a place of what other people want or need, or even the need for validation, all of that, not a helpful strategy right now. On the other side, if you come from a place of what do I want, what is important for me personally, for my own growth, for my own expression, that's a totally different thing. And Uranus is also here in conjunction with the sun. Uranus and the sun are two very specific planets which share something in common. Here on this software, it's not visible, but within the Uranus glyph, we actually have the glyph of the sun embedded. So the circle with the dot in the outside, in the inside. Again, here it's not visualized properly, but that's the proper Uranus glyph. So we have the circle and the dot on the inside, which is the symbol of the sun. And then the rest of the curves, which represent Uranus. And this inner dot that the sun and Uranus have, the only two planets which have this inner dot, this is very important. This is about this inner core. This is about this uniqueness. It's a very deep philosophical theme, and you may also think about it and, find other insights in relation to that. But one of the important things is about allowing this inner core or dot inside of you, or essence, uniqueness. Basically, that's the inner center, because this inner dot, it's in the middle of the circle. So this unique inner center that we have. And the sun and Uranus are the two creative planets, the two planets which can create something in their own way, in their unique way. So one of the themes also is that we can grow, but the way to do that is not by listening to other people, following the trends, trying to please others, do what feels safe. That's not going to work. Safety, this is the moon. We shouldn't come from this place, but instead we should come from a place of listening to this inner center, first trying to find it, trying to connect to it, and then from this place to take some action or to do something. And your results will be completely different. And you really have the possibility for a breakthrough, from a radical shift, from growing to a new level. Obviously, this is not guaranteed and will not happen for everyone, because not everyone wants that. That's totally true. Not everyone wants change or going to a new level or growing. No, that's not the case. But if you want this, then you have a great opportunity to work on this. And this Sun-Uranus conjunction, yes, it can bring certain tension. Yes, of course, Uranus is a powerful planet, a planet with, electrical impulses and radical shifts and shocking events. And yes, all of that is also part of the picture. And yet, it can be extremely exciting. One of also the general recommendations is try to do something in a unique way, in your own way. In general, I might say also try to do something brand new that you haven't done before. But here we also need to consider the fact that Mercury is retrograde and Mercury is part of this eclipse. So maybe it's not the time to do it right away, to do this brand new thing right away. But a lunar eclipse doesn't affect us only around the day when it happens. The eclipses can affect us for the upcoming 6 months, in some cases up to 3 years. So maybe we would need a couple of weeks to prepare, to process this. So we may not take the actions right away. And probably with Mercury retrograde, that would be a smart thing. Even though I just want to add one additional note that sometimes if you really feel confident and you feel a strong inner impulse and urge, and inside you have the knowing that you should do it, Mercury retrograde should not stop you. Because after all, Mercury retrograde does not guarantee that nothing will work out, everything would be a failure or would be problematic. Sometimes important things can happen also when Mercury is retrograde. So if, again, and here, look how interesting is that. Maybe that's also one of the lessons that, if we listen to society, people, astrologers, they all say that maybe Mercury retrograde is not a good time. You should pause everything, put everything on hold, be extremely careful and scared and all of that. But maybe if inside of you, this Sun-Uranus energy is triggering some kind of deeper resource, and you have the inner knowing that now you should do something, that you want to try something different, that it's time for, something innovative or brand new, then maybe that's exactly what you should do at the time that you feel would be the right for you. So that's something that I didn't see also coming, but that's how it, the energy was presented. That's the flow. A little bit more about Mercury retrograde. Yes, it's also possible that old things from the past may come up, and for good or for bad, both are possible. We can look at old things in a new way. We may process them. We can resolve old things. We can meet with people from the past. Also quite possible. What else can we say about Mercury retrograde? Things that we haven't completed. if you have a list of things that you have started or would be nice to do, you might complete them now. Or this is also, by the way, an interesting perspective. The uncompleted tasks. Those are also things that are holding our energy. Just like having too many belongings that you don't use and you just keep in case or for memories, or, and again, not about the really valuable things, but I explained this point. So just like all material objects are holding the energy, the same is also true with uncompleted tasks. So you wanted to do something, maybe you kind of started, you didn't complete it. Some of your energy is stuck there. So there are two nice options here. One is just go and finish this, whatever it is, if possible. And if you still want to do it, or make up your mind and decide that you're just not doing this. And just cross it off your list. Let it go, accept, forget. Again, this will open up the space. But those type of something started and unfinished, and every now and then your mind returns to it and you're like, I must do this, but I don't know when or how or whatever. That's holding a lot of your energy stuck. So either do it finally, or just decide that you will not do it. Or maybe like what would be in the middle as a solution is to plan when you are going to do it. If you don't want to let it go, if you don't want to cross it off your list and you can't do it right away, then plan when would be the time to do it. That might be like a compromise, I guess. And I'm looking if the North Node is in the midpoint between Mercury and Jupiter. Not exactly, but it's kind of in the middle. We have 6 degrees from this side and 4 from this side. So kind of a midpoint of Mercury and Jupiter. Another interesting fact. The North Node and the South Node, they don't have signs that they rule. So any other planet, and they are not planets also, but all the other objects that we use, the planets, they have rulerships over certain signs. The nodes, they don't have rulerships. But according to some astrologers, they have exaltations. The North Node is exalted in Sagittarius, and the South Node in Gemini. So they are exalted in the signs that are ruled by Mercury and Jupiter. And now on this eclipse, Mercury and Jupiter are on the two sides surrounding the North Node. So honestly, I keep being amazed how when you explore a chart or an event, you can find so much things when you work with the chart as something alive, like with this approach. It's just amazing. So as you can see, this is not a textbook interpretation. It's just going with the flow and with the chart. So how can we interpret this? Mercury and Jupiter on the two sides of the North Node. And the North Node symbolizes also the growth and the knowledge and learning new lessons. And Mercury and Jupiter are two planets related also to knowledge and information, again, from very different perspectives, but still. So we need to find the sweet spot between the Mercury and the Jupiter approach. The Mercury approach is when we are focused on the present, on the small tasks, on the details. It's the rational approach, the practical thinking, the good planning, especially, like what's next and then next. I mean, like short term, like small tasks type of planning. That's the Mercury approach. Jupiter on the other side, this is the long-term perspective, knowing the point, why you want to do this, the meaning behind this whole thing, the philosophical approach. So in this case, the North Node, which is our potential growth and expansion and might be also prosperity, is in the middle, kind of between Mercury and Jupiter. So it means that we need to balance those two sides. From one side, knowing the Jupiter perspective, so why we want to do this, what's the meaning, to believe in this, to have like the long-term vision and perspective of what we want and why we want it, and then to break this down into something practical and concrete. And the practical and concrete plays a major role around this eclipse, because as we see, many planets are in Taurus, including the North Node. This is the sign of, again, material form, practical implementation, having some concrete results. And the other thing is that the ruler of Taurus is Venus. Venus is in Gemini. And those are the two most, from one side, practical signs, but most of all, we can say also present. Because there are other sides, generally signs, generally the earth signs are very practical. So Virgo and Capricorn are also very practical. But the difference is that Taurus is also very present. It's about here and now. And Gemini is also about here and now. So that's one of the major focuses also, to be here and now, to implement your ideas in something concrete and practical. And actually right now, here is what we are going to do. I want to show you the chain of dispositions of the planets. This honestly is a little bit more advanced. So if you haven't heard about this, it's fine. I will try to break it down and make it as kind of like simple and useful as possible. Let me just find this in my software. It will do the calculations for us. Yes. So what is a chain of dispositions? Each planet is in particular sign in every chart that we may look at, including this one. And when a planet is in certain signs, it's under the rulership of the planet, which is generally ruling this sign. So just as I said, for example, the sun is in Taurus, the ruler of Taurus is Venus. So the sun in this case is under the rulership of Venus. And what we can do is that we can follow the path of the planets, how they are connected to each other, and see the dynamic or how they trigger each other. Because again, when a planet is in a certain sign, it means that when it gets activated, after that, it kind of like passes the signal to the ruler of the sign. So the chain of dispositions, again, it's not like a basic beginner's thing. It's more advanced, but it can be extremely interesting and helpful, especially about finding the inner dynamic. You can totally do this with your own chart, with your birth chart. Actually, it's quite interesting, and also try to find the inner dynamic. So the software shows this a little bit messy, but I will try to break it down. So what we can kind of put on the side are Saturn and Neptune. Saturn and Neptune have their own chain, which is not connected to the rest of the planets. because Saturn is in the sign of Neptune. Neptune is in its own sign, and that's it. This chain is over there. So even though they are put on top of everything else, they are actually separate. So Saturn and Neptune are on the side, which is also, by the way, very interesting, because Saturn and Neptune are, in a way, two polarities. Saturn is about the stability, the boundaries, the foundation. Neptune is the opposite, dissolving the boundaries, connecting everything, bringing the chaos. So Saturn is the order, Neptune is the chaos. So they are, in a way, complete polarities. And both of them are, in a way, out of the picture. So if you want, you may even dive deeper into that. What would that mean? That the two polarities of complete order and complete chaos are out of the picture. So we might say that we shouldn't rely on this. So it's not the right strategy to try to hold back, to control everything, do it the old way, the traditional conservative way, that's Saturn. And also, it's not the best strategy to dissolve everything, to try to kind of like surpass all of this, or kind of like give into the whole chaos and all of this. Also, not the best strategy. It's like those two extremes are not very appropriate. So Saturn and Neptune, again, they are on their own separately. But the rest of the planets are part of one chain. And we also have something which is called mutual reception. Venus and Mercury are in mutual reception, and they are at the top of the chain. Mutual reception means that they have exchanged their positions. So Mercury is in the Venus sign, and Venus is in Mercury's sign. So they have like switched places. And it means that they have like kind of like mutual control over each other. So we don't have one final dispositor of this chain. We have two, which is what we call mutual reception. And Mercury and Venus are, first of all, personal planets. They are also not just personal planets, they are inner planets. What does inner mean? If we look at the solar system, how literally the planets are positioned according to each other, on the inside, of course, we have the sun in the middle, and all of the other planets are circling around us, including the Earth. And the planets which are on the inside, looked from the Earth perspective, so between the Earth and the sun, we have only Mercury and Venus. That's why we call those inner planets. All the others, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, they are on the other side of the Earth. So Mercury and Venus, they are on the inside. And again, like anything else, this also has a deeper meaning, that Mercury and Venus are more personal. This is something that is inside of you. Mercury represents the thoughts, our thinking, the ideas, and the importance that those should be your own. Again, not gathered from other people, or thinking something because everyone else is thinking it, but we should always like check in with ourselves, like what is our own truth in this. And Venus is about our emotions and also our desires and values, which again should be something personal and internal, not defined by other people or the world or culture and society. So those two planets, to put it shortly, we would call this the mental and the emotional planet. They are at the top of the chain. So one of the most important things also is to prioritize those. your own ideas, your own truth. Mercury, your own ideas. And your desires, your emotions, your values. And most importantly, you should find a way, you should find some kind of alignment between them. Or another way also to describe this is to find a balance between the mind and the heart. If we have some kind of conflict, the heart's one thing, the mind something different, that's not going to help us. That's not the right strategy. So we should find a way to balance those, the heart and the mind. It's really amazing. Like I'm fascinated by, you know, how everything works and the different messages through the and ways through which we can explore this amazing world and ourselves in it. So all of the other planets are eventually triggering those two planets. So the sun triggers Venus. So the sun is our individuality, our awareness, our creativity. So if you want to do something, so activate the sun, express yourself, be creative, follow your own path. It triggers Venus. So it means that you need to check in with what are your values, like what are your desires, what would you like to do, what is like really valuable for you. And again, it triggers the chain. So Venus, Mercury. So check in with also the thoughts, the ideas, and so on. The other side of the chain is more complicated. It's kind of like a big thing. It starts with Jupiter, which leads to Mars, then the Moon, then Pluto, then Uranus, and then from Uranus back to Venus. So it's a very long, complicated circle. At the bottom of this chain is Jupiter. So the two planets which are at the bottom are the Sun and Jupiter, the two fire planets. Interesting also. So Jupiter, our desire to do something maybe impressive, important, to grow, to learn, to expand. When this is activated, the next thing where the impulse goes is Mars. So it means that we need to think about concrete actions. What should we do? What kind of steps we should do? We shouldn't fall into the trap of some conflicts or competition. Well, maybe competition sometimes is healthy after all. Conflicts usually not that much. But it can activate our inner fighter, our inner warrior, our desire to do something, which eventually Mars activates the Moon. So we need to check in with our level of comfort, with our safety, with our needs also, with our mood. And this can trigger Pluto. So it can make things more intense. It can trigger topics like desire to have some control or to transform something. Sometimes it may sound like the desire to overpower something or someone. Then eventually Pluto triggers Uranus. So this can lead to the impulse of radical changes, doing something in a new way, especially if we feel controlled or kind of Pluto sometimes can be a little suffocating. This can motivate us to make changes, to do something new, to follow this new impulse. And Uranus eventually goes back to Venus and then Mercury, so the top of our chain, even though here it's not presented like this, but in reality, That's how it is. So the planets which are the final dispositors, they are the top of the chain. So again, the main importance goes to desires, values, emotions. It could be, also what I missed was relationships and friendship, or relationships and contacts with other people. Those are also important things that we can nurture, we can focus on, that can help us. Yes, Venus usually represents more the emotional, warm, even romantic relationships. Mercury is more about friendly type of, or helpful contacts, or this type of connections. But again, in this case, they have switched places. So there could be some kind of mixture here between romance and friendship. But nevertheless, relationships, contacts with other people can also play a major role for us. Okay, so I think we can stop here with the chain of dispositions. This is something that if you want to dive deep into, I think only your imagination and creativity would be the limit. Like a chain of dispositions allows you to explore so much more about the inner dynamics. But again, the most important are, in our case, Venus and Mercury. Let me see if there are any questions. You have planets in Scorpio. Okay, you're sharing your experiences. Thank you. Moon and Mars also in mutual reception. Yes, if you use the old rulerships, I was using the new ones. But yeah, if we use Mars as the ruler of Scorpio, they are also connected. Yes, that's true. You may play with the chain of dispositions. You can do also a chain by using only the old rulerships, so without Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune, and that's like another layer. So it's also interesting and helpful. It can show you a different perspective as well. Yeah. One thing I also wanted to add about the generational planets. So, as I said, many of us have outer planets within the first 20 degrees of Scorpio. And this can also be interesting to explore. Here, I have made like a rough calculation, but if you're on the edge of one of those periods, you might want to check more precisely, because yeah, it's not like extremely precise by months, it's more like by year. Pluto is in the first 20 degrees of Scorpio between 1984 and 1991. So between 84 and 91. If you are born in one of those years, you must have Pluto in the first 20 degrees of Scorpio, which means that this lunar eclipse will trigger your natal Pluto. And that's kind of important. It's even more important to check also the house where it happens in your chart, because it would make it even more personalized. But in general, your Pluto is activated. And Pluto is the planet of transformations, of incredible power. It really depends on the status of Pluto in your chart. But Pluto is the collective willpower. And especially if you are kind of like using Pluto actively, this is a time when you can be really empowered, when you can transform many things, when you need to also be in alignment with your highest motivation, because Pluto brings us motivation when things are intense, extreme, or on the edge, or dangerous, or critical. That's the time when Pluto gets really activated. So, yeah, we can get more in touch with this. We may need to work on this, transform something, let go of something, but also like recognize this energy. Uranus is in the first 20 degrees of Scorpio between 1975 and 79. 1975 until 1979. That's, I think, the most interesting case, because especially for those who are closer towards the end, so perhaps around 1978, 1980, if you are born during those years, Uranus is somewhere around the 20th degree of Scorpio, and the current position of Uranus is on the opposite side. So right now, Uranus is together with the Sun on the 19th degree in Taurus. So it would mean that, first of all, around this time, you must be having your Uranus opposition. We all have this around the age of 42, plus minus 1-2 years. But yeah, basically, if you are 42 plus minus 2 years, let's say, this lunar eclipse is even more interesting for you, because you have a Uranus opposition, and again, the eclipse is triggering also your natal Uranus. And in this case, the topic about liberation, doing something different, doing something new, freedom, the desire maybe to escape from something we consider a box, or sometimes it may sound like an inner prison, or everyone experiences that in a different way. This can be extremely activated now. Be mindful, because sometimes Uranus can be very radical, and it may even activate the more destructive energy. It's always eventually for the better. It's always because it's time for something to change. But try to rely more on the Sun and on your conscious awareness. So even if you have like a very strong impulse to destroy something, to cut something off of your life or someone, give yourself a little time. Don't rush into it right away, because it's possible that Uranus in the eclipse may activate a really destructive energy, and this initial impulse may not be necessarily constructive. So again, you need to check with your own chart and explore every case separately, but some kind of interesting changes and something related to freedom, creative expression, all of those topics are especially important for people, as I said, born between 75 and 79. And the last outer planet, Neptune. Neptune is in the first 20 degrees of Scorpio between 1957 and 1966. Again, check the months for more precision if you're on the edge. But for this generation of people, Neptune is in this area of the zodiac. And for you in particular, one of the important topics can be related to sacrifice, compassion, illusions. That's a more specific case for sure. And you may need to let go of something. Actually, even with the other planets, even if you have Uranus or Pluto within those 20 degrees, we may need to let go of something related to those planets. So, for example, if we talk about Uranus, this could be how we perceive freedom or what freedom represents for us. Maybe we need to let go of some of those ideas so that we can have a new, better, more open understanding about what freedom really is. If this is Neptune, with Neptune, usually things are one idea more complicated, at least. But yeah, chances are you may need to let go of some kind of illusions. And it's not necessarily easy, or usually we don't want to do this. We really love our illusions. They are very dear to our heart. But at the same time, that's how eventually you can grow. You can basically allow your sun, the sun, to develop more, which is the uniqueness, the inner truth. So yeah, that's an interesting perspective. Again, people born within those years, we need to let go of something which is coming more from the collective. Pluto, Uranus, Neptune, the outer planets, they are collective planets. They represent collective processes, cycles. They're extremely important, of course. But in this particular case, I think that we may need to detach from some of those processes, at least for now. Again, people born within those years. And on the other, why detach? Because the South Node and the Moon are here. So as we said, South Node is about letting go. So we need to detach from something which is triggering us more from the collective. And on the other side, focus more on our individuality. As we said, our values, desires, thoughts, ideas. That's like so interesting again, because the collective planets, as I said, the outer planets, they define those bigger general processes that more or less affect the whole humanity. But the moon, from a different perspective, but it also resonates to the environment. It's the closest environment. Yes, it's the surrounding. It's people are around you, basically. But it's like all of the indications are leading basically to the same idea, that we should detach from the influence of other people. I'm not saying become a loner, live on your own, don't talk to anybody. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's more about allowing yourself to be influenced and to define your path, because you're affected by those general processes or the closest environment. And those are very, very, very deep things. Of course, it's not always according to our conscious choice and desires, but we can at least have the idea, the focus. And maybe we don't need to do this like 100%. Chances are, I think it's impossible to do it like 100%, you know, like not to be influenced by collective processes. That's perhaps not realistic. But in terms of concrete direction or choices that you are making right now, something that is really important, try to do as much as you can to make your choices from a more personal perspective. Again, not because those are the trends, that's what everybody is saying, that's what everybody believes right now, that's what my family wants. I'm talking about like this simple approach. And I think that, yeah, we have much better chances. Okay, and one more thing also, the planet which supports this eclipse is Mars. Mars has a trine with the moon and sextile, not directly with the sun. The sextile is with Uranus, but basically it's also with the rest of the planets. So Mars is kind of like a body, helpful body. Let's see what's that about. Actions, of course. One of the things is taking action, doing something. Yes, Mars in Cancer is not very initiative. Mars in Cancer takes action from a place of very personal. Like, how do I feel about this? What's my mood? Do I want to do this? Sometimes Mars in Cancer can be passive or even lazy. That's also true. Mars in Cancer is not fast, impulsive, radical. So we should check in with how we feel about something. What's the comfortable way for us to do it? To take some time to also, Mars in Cancer doesn't have much energy, or at least it's not excessive amount of energy. So try to be strategic here. Like, what is really worth it to put your energy into? If you consider the fact that your energy is not endless, that maybe right now we don't have this, like huge fiery energy available. Yeah, the water energy dominates. Actually, we have 4 planets in water signs, 3 planets in earth signs. So the feminine energy is stronger. So how you feel about something, is it worth it? And then to really take the action. That's also a good strategy. So I think I shared with you guys what I wanted to share. And if you have any questions, I'm open to them. Unfortunately, I think we won't have time for a reading now, but next time I will really do my best because we are a little behind with the time. Again, for those who are not together with us on Zoom, if you want to be part of our group, be able to join the Zoom meetings, the club is completely free. You can either go to marsstars.net and find the links there, or after the session, I will try to put the links in the description below. Also, make sure to join our Telegram group because it's very easy to find recordings and reminders and all of that. Let me see if there are any questions. How can GSR help us in dealing with the transformation this eclipse is likely to bring? That's a great question. GSR is the method which can help you in every situation. In every situation, you just need to have papers like this. I always have like papers around me. If I show you the space around me, like everywhere I have those papers, white, colored, doesn't matter. That's all you need. And you can do a session for yourself at any time, as long as you have a little bit of space on the floor. Or you can go to a specialist, of course, who can do the session for you. GSR works with the inner states, with your inner energy, with the subconscious mind. It's a method, like there are concrete steps that we follow. And what we are doing is that we bring order in your own energy system. Or if you're doing the session for yourself, you are doing it yourself. It's not about the specialist manipulating your field or doing something or putting something external in your system. That's not how it works. Our creator has this popular example. It's metaphorically like putting or cleaning your house and putting the objects at the right places. We are doing the same thing, but on an energy level. Very briefly, we may talk about this in more details another time, but to put it shortly, everything that we experience on this level of states, the subconsciousness, is affected by our system, by the family system. And we receive both our resources and our distortions from the family system. How are the distortions happening or coming, or how are they created? One of your family members, ancestors, someone who might have lived, we don't know, 5, 6, 10 generations before you, have had some kind of difficult situation, very difficult situation. The resource is kind of like blocked or distorted there. And then it doesn't come to you in a clean, pure way, but it comes with some kind of distortions. The most common example, one of your great-grandfathers, for example, has been to a war. And initially they have been very brave, very courageous, but because of this braveness and courage, they get hurt physically, or they may even die. The way this energy is kind of like, or this memory is remembered within the system, is that it's not safe to be brave and courageous. And then in your current life, you are living your life. There is no physical danger. There is no war around you. And yet you struggle with self-expression or with being courageous or with doing something on your own. And we all have like countless of those distortions. What we do with the session is that we focus on this energy and we return it to the natural source. We do this with the papers. It's very simple. Technically, the steps are very simple. When we return the energy back to the source, what happens is that the initial pure resource of braveness and courage becomes available to you. There are like unlimited ways of which we can experience distortions. For someone else, it could be, for example, to have fights or to lead battles or to feel constantly attacked. Again, because someone in the family has suffered, for example. So, yeah, like the human experiences are very interesting, but the idea is that you can fix this on an energy level. How we can use astrology and GSR together. First of all, it's an amazing combination because you can, I can't imagine like a more productive combination, because astrology can show you the patterns, can guide you into what you should look at. And for example, when you are having certain transits or progressions, there is an energy inside of you that is being activated. The transiting Uranus or Neptune or Mars, they are not putting something external. even though it may feel like this sometimes, that, oh, the outside world is bringing those shifts, unexpected things, difficulties. No, it's just mirroring something that is happening inside of you, something that has already been inside of you. But the point is that when this energy is activated, we can transform it and we may fix it. Actually, that's how we call this. We literally call this fixing the energy. So, yeah, it's a very safe and very natural way, because we work only with your own energy, not mine, not the specialist, not somebody else's. We are not, again, forcing you to, it's not like a extrasensory compensation, or how else can you call this? Energy influence that is really influence. Like the GSR specialists, they work from a zero state. And the zero state means that you are neutral. You are just like a tool for the client. You are not bringing anything from yourself. You are not putting or taking from the energy. Like, I mean, putting from your energy or taking from the energy. You are just like a tool, and you put order in the client's energy system, and that's it. And yeah, it's incredible. If you have anything around the 20th degree in Pisces, you'd have a guide. Yes, right. But no. I mean, Neptune is not close enough. If Neptune was closer to the 20th degree, yeah. How do we get the recording? Yes, the recording of those sessions, they will be available on YouTube, and in Telegram, I will post the links also. If you're really open to the process, do you feel the changes fast? Usually, you feel the changes right away. Every session is different. Every system, it means like every person is different. So there are specific cases. Sometimes we may need a little time to process or to understand how this would change. But especially if we work on something, because there are two major types of, we call them symptoms or energy distortions. One is dropping of energy. The other one is a barrier. The dropping of energy is like when you don't have resource. It's like you get into a hole, like there is no energy. If we work on such a symptom, usually the client feels the results right away, because it's like there is like energy that takes the place of the emptiness, so to speak. So that's one of the types of sessions. The other one, the barrier, is when you have lots of energy or resource, but it's blocked. It's like a barrier and you can't use it. Very often it feels like you are hitting a wall, or you are trying really hard and it doesn't work. And it's like, you know, this feeling like I'm stuck, but not because I'm stuck, I'm dying, I'm hopeless. Like, this is one state. The other one is like, I'm trying, I'm doing my best, or I want to do, but I don't know what. This type of energy is a barrier. And the barriers are more specific. Sometimes you may feel like you can take the action right away, but it depends on the resource that we are working on. It's a very deep topic, because sometimes we have resources that we may want to keep, you know, because we have some kind of secondary benefits. Let's say it's a little strange, but some of us have a resource to suffer or to be a victim. And consciously, obviously, everyone would say, I don't want to suffer. I want to end this. I don't want to be the victim, or I don't want to feel like a victim. Chances are, if that's repetitive, if that's like a pattern in your life, there is a resource underneath that. So without consciously realizing it, you are receiving something. And it's not always easy to let go of those types of resources because we don't always want to lose the secondary benefits. It won't change the influence of the session. I mean, the fact that, you know, you can't stop the influence of the session, but it might feel sometimes kind of like you need to learn how things work or to process, or it's like something new is opening up to you. It's extremely interesting. Like, this is something that I'm personally doing sessions for myself every day. Today, I have actually done 2 sessions for myself. So it's incredible. And we can talk about this more. But the idea is that you can learn, you can practice this on your own, and you can work with simple states. Simple states may mean like, right now I'm in a bad mood, or whatever. I'm lazy, or I'm frustrated, or I'm anxious. Like, it could be something current, like right now it's a discomfort. Those types of sessions are very effective. Like, if this is something that right now is bothering you, you do a session, you forget about it. Or you may, we call this process twisting, you may twist a deeper energy, for example, about something that's a general theme. Let's say, I'm making this up, but for example, in general, what example should I bring? Okay, I feel like I'm frustrated with my husband, let's say. Or I feel unappreciated by my husband, or anything. Like, we may work with more like deeper things, or things that are consistent in your life. All of that. Thank you for the shares also. I think I could have stopped this already. Okay, so thank you so much, guys, for spending this time with me. Take some time around the eclipse. So on Friday, again, Friday is the Venus day, and Venus plays such a major role. On Friday, you may take some time for a meditation around this time. I think it was 1:30 p.m. Eastern, US Eastern time. So you can take like 15 minutes just for whatever meditation. You may watch something on YouTube or just do it yourself. But that's a very good time to release something. Okay, so I will see you next time. I will let you know. Maybe it will be next week, but I will keep you posted about our next meeting.